Welcome to the e-learning shed. Today we are going to discuss data validation. Data validation is great when you want to create drop-down lists for a complicated spreadsheet, or you want to make sure data is valid when users are entering information into your spreadsheet. So let's get started. I have a column here in column A that have different segments. I would like the end users to be able to get the segment out of a drop-down list rather than typing it into my spreadsheet. So to get started, I'm going to do a data validation list. There are two ways to do a data validation list. One way is to enter the information into your list from the data validation screen or to use a prepared list. For this training, I'm going to show you both. First, I've already created a prepared list here in which I'm going to hide this information after I create my data validation list. So let's get started. To get started, I'm going to highlight the column in which I want my drop down list to appear in. From there, I'm going to go to the Data tab, come to Data Validation, and select Data Validation. Within the screen, underneath the Settings tab, I'm going to select List because I want to create a list, a drop down list. I'm going to leave my Ignore blanks and In Cell drop down the same. I'm going to make sure that's selected here, and I'm going to hit the up arrow so I can go out to my spreadsheet and select that list that I have already pre-created. Once I select my list, there's a little blue down button here that means just download that data here so I can use that as my source, and that's what I'm going to use. Within data validation, I have a input message and an error alert tab. The input message just means you're letting the user kind of giving them a little instruction on what to do. So for my title, I'm going to say select segment, and I'm just going to tell them to select the segment from the drop down list. In this error message, you have a couple styles. You can either give them a hard stop message, you can give them a warning, or you can give them something that's informational. I'm just going to give them a warning, and I'm going to just tell them if they try to type something in that's not from my list, I'm going to call it an invalid entry, and I'm going to tell them to please select segment from drop down list just in case. Okay, and I'm going to say okay. So now when I come over to my segment column, I can see that message that I created. Just the message kind of gives them a little bit of information. So it's telling them to select their segment and to select it from the drop down list. They could click on entries that are already here and select one, or they can go to, I have the very bottom of the page here where I'm able to also put in that segment information myself. Now, if the user tries to put in a segment that is not in my list and hit enter, they're going to get something to say an invalid entry message. It's going to tell them, hey, this is invalid. Please select from the drop down list. Do you want to continue? Now, with this, if they hit yes, they are able to use what they put there. So that's a way to override. If they were to say no, so if they put in local again, then it would delete that entry out. They could delete that out, and then they could select from that segment. They could choose that. The other way to enter information into a data validation list is just to simply type the information in. So if I was to go back to my list and I came back here, I could delete this information out, and I could very well type it all in by hand, just separating each of my selections by a comma. And so on. So I won't go through that. Now, something I do want to talk about is if you do have data validation and Let's say you are just adding to your list. Let's say you want to add an additional entry to this list. You could do that. So if I wanted to put local in here, I could cancel out of data validation, come over here and put local in. It's as simple as reselecting your column again, going to data validation, and selecting that list all over again, which puts local on there now. So now I can say okay. Now when I come over to my segment area, now I have local on that list. Okay. And if you want to get rid of it, say you don't want the drop down list or any of that information, you'll simply just highlight your list. You'll go back into your data validation, and guess what? Clear all takes all that information out of your spreadsheet. So that's data validation with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the e-learning shed channel, and I thank you for watching.